Alright, so right now we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and the applications of computer science. Both topics are in one presentation as shown over here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is cybersecurity. So the first thing that we're going to do is have the students play a Kahoot. This Kahoot, just copy and paste that link into a browser. It's just going to kind of test their knowledge, get them really ready for the lesson. Alright, so the first thing we want to talk about is what cybersecurity is. So basically for today's class, we're not going to talk about all of the different types of coding projects that companies make to protect their websites or their companies. But we're going to talk about kids being safe on the internet. So the first thing we want to talk about is that cybersecurity, definition, measures that can be taken to protect your computer and your system and yourself from any hacks or attacks. So basically just being safe on the internet. We're going to dive more into that later, just kind of give them a brief overview of what cybersecurity is. Alright, so staying safe. A lot of this was touched in that Kahoot. It depends. You can either go over these slides for the first time, or you can talk about it as you go through that Kahoot. I like to kind of just stick with the slides. Your parents. So within this presentation, we're going to keep ingraining in the students that it's always the best to ask their parents, to go by their parents and what they say about the internet. So if they don't know if a site is safe, have them ask their parents, have them look it over. Stress that it's very important that their parents approve what they're doing online so that they won't get attacked, so that they won't get cyberbullied, and that they'll be protected from cybercrime, as later discussed in the presentation. Okay, so when you see an email from an unknown sender or have a chain email, tell the students to ignore it and tell your parents. A lot of students, when we say that, they say that they want to be cool, fit in, respond to the chain email, or that they would want to share it with their friends. But we have to stress to them that these chain emails, they can be dangerous. We don't know who's in them. Again, it's just a very unsafe environment, and that their parents are the ones that can stop it. Their parents can protect them from that. Again, personal information, that's our next bullet. That ties into these chain emails or these emails from an unknown sender, because some emails are actually encrypted where people, when they open it, then they're going to get hacked. They can have that email sent to all of their contacts, which again is very bad. So if they see something, say something. See that email, tell their parents. So personal information, very, very important. You'll find that a lot of these students have actually done some of these things that we're going to talk about. So we have to stress, don't give their personal information to others without their parents' permission, or in general at all. So this information includes passwords, social security numbers, names, addresses, any sort of personal information that gives them away. One of the things that we want to stress is that, let's say a student says that they're going to forget their password, so they think it's a good idea to give that password to their friends. That's not a good idea. That actually happened in one of my courses that I taught. Again, stress that that password should be just for them and only them. If that password starts getting around, they are more susceptible to be hacked. And again, cybercrime, false identification, all of that. So just tell them that all of this information needs to stay with them, and that asking their parents and talking to their parents about their internet activity is very important as well. So again, students have the important role in helping us protect cyberspace, in helping us protect kind of what happens on the internet, and this is how they can get involved. First, let's define cybercrime. So it's kind of just like stealing money, but it's more than money. It's identity, well, money also, bank accounts, and personal information. When someone steals your identity, that's terrible. They do, bad things under another person's alias, and again, that leads to, crime, police investigations. It's very, very bad. So again, that personal information that we talked about in the previous slides, they need to keep that for themselves to avoid this cybercrime over here. So now we want to cite some statistics to kind of engage the kids. So the first one is that kids 8 to 18 spend 7 hours and 38 minutes per day online. That's a lot. Now, stress that if a child sleeps 8 hours at night, that means that only half of the time that he or she is awake is spent online, which is crazy. And again, the issues that kids face are cyber predators, cyberbullying, and identity theft. We're going to talk about those three main topics in the later slides, but seeing that kids spend so much time online, that just leaves them more open to cyber attacks, cyberbullying, stuff like that. And again, we just want to stress them that staying safe, they need to kind of rein back their online activity and ensure that when they are online that they're using the internet safely. Because again, like we talked to the students about how internet is such a tool, it's a medium for them to kind of be connected, but to what point does that connection kind of leave them vulnerable? And that's kind of what we want to establish in this class. Alright, so the main three topics that we're going to talk about that we want the students to protect themselves from are cyber predators, cyberbullying, and identity theft. So kind of just go over what each of those are. Cyber predators are people who are online searching for other people to use them, control them, or harm them in some way. And students are going to be mind blown. They're going to say, wow, like we didn't know that there are people that are sitting there all day just online looking for people to hack, to use, don't they have jobs? But in the end, we're going to convince them and show them through this presentation that there are people like that. And the internet isn't just used as a tool, it's used as a place for these crimes to happen. The internet is another community. And just like within our communities, that there's a lot of crime that happens online as well. Cyberbullying. This one the kids are very familiar with. It's taught in schools all the time. But again, we just want to reinforce that cyberbullying is electronic posting, sharing, sending messages about someone, and it can be anonymous. So, chat rooms, computer video game chats. Those are very, very common in a child's life now, and you have to talk about how talking to those people can A, lead to cyberbullying, and can B, lead to identity theft, and C, it can lead to, death and stuff like that. Again, we're going to talk about that later. And identity theft, again, the illegal use of someone's personal information to steal money or credit. That just goes back and tie that back into, again, keeping that password and that personal information safe, and that will lead to not being vulnerable to identity theft. Going back here, cyberbullying. It's mentioned in the Kahoot that if a person is asked to meet up with someone online, let's say an online video game, they've become friends, tell them not to. Meeting up with these people in real life is never a good thing. We don't know who these people are. They can be, different people. They can be catfishing. They can be these people that they're actually not online, and that can lead to a lot of dangerous situations. So relating to the outside world. So cybersecurity, in a nutshell, it basically is where computer scientists, they work to create code that protects against other cybersecurity attacks. And common languages are Python, C, JavaScript, and SQL. One of the things to note to them is that each of these have a certain function that they carry out. Some of them overlap, but let's just say for now, PHP. That one is specifically used for websites. That one is commonly used just for that. And again, like Python can be used for fintech, which we'll talk about later. That one's used for, let's say, bank accounts or different companies that want to protect themselves. Cybersecurity is mainly found not just in the home, but in also banks and companies. Companies actually rely on cybersecurity to protect the information of their clients. So let's say a bank, when they have people bank online, put in all that information, they have to use languages like PHP to protect that client information so that that doesn't get out and so that the wrong people don't get a wind of that. So that basically sums up our cybersecurity portion of this presentation. We mainly talk about just being safe on the internet, how students can be safe and avoid cybercrime, identity theft, cyberbullying, etc. Now, we're going to move on to applications of computer science and cybersecurity. All right, so 3 fields of computer science. These are the 3 that we're going to be mainly talking about today. FinTech, artificial intelligence / machine learning, as well as technology in relation to health. So this is kind of where we go into this little quiz. This quiz kind of just talks about, and it just digs deeper into what a student is interested in. So kind of just going through this very briefly. What's your favorite class? Math, science, English. Science, again, that would be related to technology and health. Math, fintech, English, we're just talking about kind of the development portion that they like to code, they like to use words, stuff like that. Video game development, this one goes to machine learning, artificial intelligence, if they would like to develop video games. Robots, again, back to that artificial intelligence and machine learning aspect. Do you like to code? Again, just asking if they're really into computer science. Working with others, we can talk about the different aspects of computer science, which we'll talk about later. This question you don't necessarily have to explain. We'll kind of just tie that into the presentation later. Artistic and creative. Maybe they're not the best at cybersecurity, but they're really artistic. They can use CSS and other front-end development languages to code. Medicine, body, again, that's just related to health hacks and technology in relation to medicine. Alright, so now that the quiz is over, the kids will kind of have an understanding of what types of characteristics they would need to go into each respective field. Now, going into this, it depends how old the kids are. Middle schoolers, they kind of are, just thinking about what they want to do in life. So this is definitely a great presentation to have with them. We're going to start off with fintech. Within each of these three categories, we're kind of just going to glaze over the different aspects of each. So fintech, basically it's when the computer is aiding in financial and banking services. So it'll create algorithms that will calculate numbers. It'll create programs for the consumer and the company. It creates tasks and creates programs that carry out a certain task, like when a person pays for food. When they use, let's say, Postmates in like California area, they automatically have to put their credit card number into their phone, which will then allow that person that's getting them the food to go out and get it, having that information. And so kind of that fintech portion of it allows the computer to get that information and get that the money taken from that bank account. So again, paying for insurance, when you have people pay online for their insurance, you're going to have a fintech related application that's going to kind of take the money out of the account or calculate how much the person needs to pay for that insurance. It's anything kind of related to money, but also kind of related to data. We'll talk about that later, but again, data analytics, that's something else. When the person wants to analyze data, they're going to use kind of the fintech methods, because that just helps you with the numbers and just kind of processing all of that data. And two companies that kind of use this fintech is PayPal and Venmo. AI and machine learning. So kind of like robot vacuums, and in a sense the kids aren't going to really know the nitty-gritty details. You can kind of explain it to them. I'll mention some specifics in this presentation, but basically with AI, I like to kind of cite robot vacuums, and robot vacuums are very unique in that yes, it can autonomously clean the floor, but it also has certain technology called SLAM technology, and this technology is able to sense whenever it gets too close to an object. So instead of running into the wall, it'll automatically go towards the wall, realize that there's an object that's going to block its path, and then kind of move it in a different direction. And that's kind of where artificial intelligence and machine learning come into play. It's the development of computer programs and technological devices that can carry out tasks that require human intelligence. So we're going to first talk about that robot vacuum. This is a great way to kind of just put it into perspective for the kids. So we're going to say that usually when a human walks somewhere, they're going to see that they're going to walk into a wall, and automatically they're going to know that they need to turn. But let's say we have a vacuum, a autonomous vacuum without any technology. It's an object. It's not going to know that there's something in front of it. It's just going to keep going. But with artificial intelligence, with this machine learning, it kind of starts to think like a human. Once it detects an object, it's going to say, or realize that that object is bad. You don't want to go there. So then it's going to automatically move itself so that it's not by that object. Again, surgeries. Right now, Japan is trying to create a robot that's going to automatically kind of help the doctor in a surgery. And that takes human intellect, but it's going to be very hard for a robot, an object, to kind of do all of those surgeries because it doesn't have maybe all of the knowledge that it needs or the bedside manner or that precision. But right now, due to machine learning and artificial intelligence, this technology is able to gain that precision, gain that knowledge, and keep learning from its certain circumstances. And that's going to kind of help them create those surgeries. And then the second bullet over here, placement in the room, just relate that back to the robot vacuums. They're also trying to develop robot armies. That's a thing too. Other nations are looking at that, kind of focus less on that one. But on the last bullet here, which talks about robots and devices that utilize artificial intelligence, aren't given a set of instructions. They can just carry out tasks using inferences and prior movements. Very important. So again, going back to that robot vacuum, or going back to that HTML presentation, we talked about how code basically gives that computer a certain set of instructions. And yes, it gives it that precise set of instructions saying, if I have this and this, I want to create something else. But with artificial intelligence and machine learning, the computer's not going to know automatically, okay, I'm going to go here. It learns as that robot is moving. And so it automatically just carry out a task. It can do something based on the circumstances. And once it sees that certain area where, let's say, that object that robot vacuum is going to go to, once it notices that there's something in front of me that's bad, even though I may be in a different place than when it first happened the first time, I still know that there's an object in front of me that's bad, so I need to move. It can just work not just in that one situation, but every single time that there's a situation where that robot vacuum encounters another object that it's about to run into. And lastly, health in relation to technology. So this one, again, it kind of ties into fintech and artificial intelligence. These three, there's a lot of overlapping features about them. So this one, you can either have that medical software engineering side with that research, or you can go to that robotics and AI side. Again, I already talked about that the robotic side of it with those surgeries, or kind of even robots helping patients. They can be like nurses. They're learning to talk. They're learning bedside manner. Again, something to talk about with artificial intelligence, with health hacks. But now again, talking about that fintech side, that data side. Software engineering, research, analyzing patterns, stuff like that. And also with technology and this new sense of computer science, it's able to connect patients and doctors more efficiently. There's programs that will automatically just take in information, and then within a couple of seconds, it'll show you online what you have. Like if you say you have a 101 degree temperature and you feel tired, it's going to tell you that it has a fever just by recognizing those symptoms. Virtual technology to carry out the task of a doctor, and kind of these last two bullets here relate back to each other. The idea of virtual medicine. So this one is where kind of the patient and the doctor can kind of talk in a simpler manner. So the patient can communicate with the doctor over Skype using a technological device, or doctors can diagnose a patient through the computer using an app or technology. This is just basically through having another device, an application, something like that the patient already has and will automatically link the doctor to the patient. Also, technology that carries out the task of a doctor. That can be any website, any interactive site that takes in user input and will speed out a basic symptom or a disease that someone has based on recognizing the symptoms. So that's it for the applications of computer science presentation. Again, this is just a very general overview. You can go really specific into some areas, but again, this is just kind of to allow the students to understand the different aspects of computer science just generally. And yeah, thank you so much.